Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of the Skype Show. On today's episode, I'm joined by Aliatha from IR Prognosis, who will be showing the IRGC Assessor tool, and Richard Binterson from Skype Validator. It's a project with Michael Lamontani. He's been working on for a while, and he's got some new features to show in this episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is the last one of 2016. In 2017, the Skype Show will be taking a break for January while we relook at what we're trying to achieve and what we're trying to do. And hopefully, come February, we'll have something new and fresh and vibrant for you guys. So, all that's remaining for me to say is wish you happy holidays, happy new year, and we'll see you again in 2017. Thank you.
Hi there, my name's Ali Athar. I work for IR in the UK, and today I'm here to talk to you about IR Skype for Business capabilities for both online and on-premise. For those not familiar, Microsoft, based on past experience with Skype for Business and Microsoft Lync, have recently launched a framework to ensure optimal experience for Skype for Business. Partners can, of course, certify against this framework as well. And the framework is mainly designed for successful planning, delivery, and operations of your Skype for Business environment. And again, as I mentioned, this can be both online and on-prem. So what I'm going to talk to you about is what IR provides on top of the Skype for Business. So out of the box, Skype for Business and Lync provide base reporting and dashboards. What we provide on top is IR covers pretty much all of the framework across planning, delivering, and operation. I'll be talking in more details about these, but from a planning perspective, we provide the IR Prognosis UC Assessor tool. This is really for on-prem and online solutions, Skype for Business, and it's for testing and checking if your environment is ready for Skype for Business. From a delivery perspective, we have IR testing services, which can basically do accepting testing and check your design setup before you go live in the environment. From an operation perspective, we can basically do advanced experience management with Prognosis. And this is basically doing ongoing operation monitoring and even reporting for things like adoption, voice quality, capacity management. Uh, so what I'm showing you here is the Skype operation framework. And in terms of assessment itself, it's really divided into two tiers from Microsoft perspective. One is essentials, and this is for checking online and on-prem, and this is for testing and checking if your environment is ready for Skype for Business, right? And it's also for identifying any specific issues in the environment as well. Microsoft does recommend that you do this on an ongoing basis, even after it's deployed. From an advanced perspective, this does everything that Essential does, but on top of that, it can provide root cause analysis and troubleshooting as part of the assessment. And Prognosis Assessor, UC Assessor, actually fits along these two models as well quite nicely. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So talking about the UC Assessor itself, what can it do? It can detect against Skype for Business online issues and on-prem issues. It can test across multiple sites at once. It can measure things like DSCP loss, cause markings being stripped, latency, packet loss, jitter. There's a centralized management, so you can have Prognosis deployed on, for example, things like, even things like laptops on each of these different sites, and you can manage it all centrally. And I'll show you how that works in the demo section once we go there. And it's completely software based, so it's no network probes needed. And this is why Microsoft worked with us, because there are some tooling available from Microsoft itself, but they don't provide things like DSCP loss. They can't do site-to-site tests, and they require specific parameters on there, and that's what the UCSSR provides compared to that. In terms of essentials, UC Assessor essentials, this basically, just like the Sky for Business framework that I talked about earlier, this is mainly to detect and test, issues in the environment. It also provides things like latency, packet loss, jitter, and specific issues like audio, video, and on app sharing traffic as well, issues on all these three tiers. It can provide assessment in real time. There's also a report generated afterwards that you can send to Microsoft. And it also identifies potential issues in the environment as well. And here's some screenshots which we'll be seeing live in the environment once we go into the tool itself. From an advanced perspective, it's really that root cause analysis and troubleshooting. And we're just showing you some examples in the screenshot here where we're giving you a plain English prescription on the network. And again, this is all done without probes, right? So we're looking at the network layer. So within your network, we can actually pinpoint what are the issues in Essentials. And with Advanced, you can actually look at how to solve those potential issues as well with one-click troubleshooting capabilities. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to flip to the demo itself, and we're going to walk through the UCSR Advanced. And once I'm in the tool, I'll also talk about, what are the differences? What do you see in Essentials versus Advanced once we show in the tool? So in terms of what you're seeing on the screen right now, this is our Prognosis web interface. It's an HTML5 based interface. And what you're seeing here is the UC Assessor interface. And in terms of if you had essentials, one of the things you would see in the categories would be manage locations. You would see things like Sky for Business online testing, and you would see the results page. The other things come in the advanced element, which is the site-to-site testing, the call simulators, and looking and troubleshooting exact issues on the network side. So I'll show you these elements in a little bit. Let's go into manage locations itself. So if I go into manage locations, what I'm seeing here is it's actually pretty easy to set up sites yourself. So and there's some instructions at the top which cover what you need to do. So you basically take a laptop or any machine on that site, you install Prognosis UC Assessor on it, and you basically just enter the IP address here and click add, and it'll show up in the list here. In my case, at the bottom, you can see some of the servers I've already added in the environment, Prognosis servers. And what I can see is if I click on configuration here, if I just open that up, what this is showing you is the configuration for that specific assessor. And on the left-hand side, the IP addresses you see here, Prognosis Assessor can actually automatically detect the nearest Sky for Business online edges. So these are automatically detected, and it's telling you things like round trip time in milliseconds. It's looking at IP addresses and where the edges are in the environment. In terms of the setup of the site, you can call it whatever you like. And you can choose what type of tests you want. And the way we've sort of divided them is primary, secondary, and tertiary test. In my case, I'm testing against Amsterdam Online Edge, London Online Edge, and Dublin. And you can choose what modalities you want to choose as well from a testing perspective. So in my case, I'm testing voice, but you can choose voice, video, or app. By default, we test against Sky for Business Online Meetings Codec G722. Microsoft's methodology is that if you test against this codec and it works quite well, then your experience will be quite good with the other codecs as well. But we provide the option for you to test against other codecs as well for that peace of mind if you do want to check it. How many calls you want to set up as well in here. And I can change this number and I click start. In my case, I'm actually going to go to the home page itself. Just going to enable the site panel. We actually have quite a few tests running in the environment itself already. And what we're seeing here is we're seeing 4 sites being tested. We have a network operations center. We have London, Denver, and Sydney. And by the way, this is the actual IR UC Assessor taking place for our Sky for Business Online connectivity. What you can do is you can see the link to the closest edges that you see there. I can actually hover over the link, and this is what you get in Essentials as well. You can actually see the latency, packet loss, What I can also see is, do you see this? That I don't actually have um, DSCP configured, or it's being stripped in my connection to the edge. So we can see that here as well. What we can also do is there's some drill down capabilities here, so I can look at more details about that, my connection to the London edge that I'm seeing here. But what I can also do is, if I was actually on a wireless connection with that on that site, it'll actually show you the wireless signal strength here as well. In this case, this is actually connected via wired connection, so this is actually not showing the wireless signal strength. But if this London site that being tested was on a wireless connection, we would see the signal strength as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on the London site. We're going to look at the London to London connection. What I'm also going to look at is more details about the actual network hop itself, the longest network hop that it's reporting here. So we're going to open those two drill downs to show you more details. So in terms of London to London connection, this is actually showing me the full stats related to latency, packet loss, jitter, and this is historical as well. So you can choose the time of day, hour, day, or week, and you can go back in time in terms of intervals. So currently it's showing me between 1650 GMT to 1750, but I can actually go back in time and view that because there's a database assigned to it and it's looking at historical information. In terms of the assessment part that I was showing you, and let me zoom in a little bit, this is actually showing me the whole path between my London site that I'm testing against to the closest Skype for Business Online edge. And this is actually part of Essentials. What I'm showing you here is actually what you get in Essentials as well. What this is showing me is, to give you some clarity on what these different icons is, the ones with the blue arrows, the routers, they're actually in our IR network. If I hover over them, you can actually see, it says IR local. The ones with the white logos, white arrow logos, they're actually in the public internet. And the one with the Skype type icons, they're actually in the Skype environment. And we can actually see the path all the way to the media relay IP address on the Microsoft side. And we can actually see the latency packet loss jitter across the full end-to-end link, right? Now this is good for pre-assessment, when you're actually putting this environment in, before you put the Sky for Business environment in, but it's good for you to have ongoing tests as well for this, because, you cannot trust the public internet. You don't know how reliable that is to your Sky for Business Online edge, but also Microsoft is, network is becoming more and more complex as Microsoft is becoming a service provider. So that peace of mind before deployment is great, but Microsoft recommend that you do these tests on an ongoing basis as well. So you have that peace of mind that, you have that high level of experience across app sharing, video, and audio in the environment itself. So this was Essentials that I was showing you here today. With Advanced, you get some additional capabilities. So we can do site-to-site capabilities. This is useful because even if you're on Skype for Business, even if you're on Skype for Business Online, when you call between, if a user in London, for example, calls someone in Sydney, the media path is actually created directly, right? So Skype for Business is intelligent enough to take the shorted path. So site-to-site testing is quite important. So not only your connection to the online edge is good, but also between sites is good as well. And Prognosis can provide that. Both in Essentials and Advanced, we can provide the results page as well. And this page is really designed to be easy to read when you submit this to Microsoft, and you can do so by Excel exporting this result. And there's some visual alarms in here as well. So green means that these are good. The red ones, the red parameters that you see visual alarms of, this is denoting that your experience will not be so good or you don't meet the requirements for that assessment. So this is a good report to have when you submit to Microsoft or your partner, so you can actually see that your environment is ready for Skype or not, or your different sites are ready for Skype or not, and they're exportable to Excel, as I mentioned. In terms of Advanced itself, we do provide additional details. So there is a built-in call simulator as well. So you can do things like check if DSCP is being stripped on your network. You can check if firewalls are blocking something. You can even do some troubleshooting checks to see if traffic is being blocked as well, and that's provided as part of advanced. Um, we also have this elements that you see here, the network tree. This all comes in advance, so you get things like a health report. So you know the plain English prescriptions I mentioned. This actually looks across the whole environment, and it gives you plain English prescriptions across your different interfaces for all the potential problems you might have on the network side. We also have, a routers page, which shows you all the routers that you're monitoring in UC Assessor. There's also things like a pathfinder where you can enter IP addresses and map the whole path out in the environment. There's also issues tab, which you can take a look at and see all the interfaces that are having an issue. So rather than looking at a full assessment test, you can actually go in here and view the whole list of network interfaces that have potential problems, look into those network interfaces, and from a root cause analysis, it gives you a plain English prescription if there's anything wrong with that network interface itself. There's also a phones tab. Because it's looking at the network layer, it can tell you what phones are connected and where they're connected, which VLAN, etc. So good for inventory management. So what I showed you earlier, and I've been talking about earlier, was the UC Assessor tool. And we've been going over some slides, and I showed you a quick demo itself. On top of the ongoing assessment, we also have the prognosis tool itself as well. And what this provides is, we talked about the box reports you get, but what it can provide is real-time voice quality and historical voice quality across the Sky for Business estate once that's gone in. We can also provide per network hop details and voice quality correlation across SBCs. So if you have SBCs in your environment, we can actually stitch calls together and show you a 50,000 feet view of how the call was going through. We can provide network troubleshooting, which covers some of the things that I showed you earlier with call simulators as well built in. We also have executive style reporting available. So you can get report packs which cover things like adoption reports, etc. But the reporting, dashboarding is all flexible in prognosis. So you can go in and build your very own if you wanted to with little training. We also have proactive alerting, which looks at things like key health indicators, event logs, and other key elements that are important for root cause analysis, not only on the network side, but on the Sky for Business side as well. And no environment is truly single vendor, right? So even if you go full Microsoft, you're going to have different type of headsets. You're going to have different PCs. You're going to have SBCs, different type of networks, and Prognosis can provide that full end-to-end view. And hopefully today, as I showed you the assessment piece, the ease of use and root cause analysis, you can see how we can help provide that end-to-end piece. So thank you for your time today, and hope you found the session useful. And for any more questions, please reach out to IR.
Couple of questions then.
Sure.
First of all, is I noticed that your control panel was on the was hosted in the cloud. So is that do you have an on-premise control server option, or is it connected to your cloud service?
So definitely. So in terms of UC Assessor, what you can do is, and I think it'll be best answered if I actually go to the specific slide while I'm answering it. So just bear me 1 second.
No problem.
So basically, in terms of UC Assessor itself, what you can do is in terms of the central interface, the web interface that I was showing you, you can put it in a server or, in your environment and
Hmm.
basically deploy UC Assessor on each of the sites. So definitely from a on-prem perspective, we can definitely do that from a
Okay, cool.
centralized management. So it doesn't have to be the cloud.
Right, cool.
Yeah.
And the cost difference for essentials and advanced. I mean, it, do you have any public pricing for that, or is that contact your partner of choice for that?
Well, I guess best thing is to contact us directly. I mean, UC Assessor is a partner-led model,
Yeah.
so we work directly with partners, and we're the only tool that's part of the tools vendor in the Sky for
Hmm.
Business Online framework. So we do. want to work with partners on this, and the idea is we provide these tools for partners for successful deployment for Sky for Business. So our model is very partner based, but yeah, reach out to IR, and we can do some conversations.
Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. Right, so Microsoft have, in the Skype Operations Framework, have released their own freebie network assessment tool that tests against the Anycast address in Office 365.
Yep.
So, what's the benefit of using, say, UC Assessor Essentials as opposed to the freely available service from Microsoft?
Yeah, sure thing. That's actually a pretty good question. And the main reason is, and this is why Microsoft are working directly with us. And if you go to the Frameworks website, we're the only tools vendor of choice in the Framework website. And the reason for that is we can provide some things that you do not get are the freebie tools. And one of the key ones, just mentioning some key ones, the DSCP loss test, for example, checking if CAUS is being stripped or not enabled in the network. You don't get those in that tool that we can provide on top. We can do the site-to-site assessment. So
Mhm.
if you're doing a call between London and Amsterdam in your environment, the call will take the shortest media path, which is going to be direct, rather than going to the
Yeah,
internet and coming back. So we can do that level of testing. Also, this is a completely software-based approach, no network probes needed on the UCSSR side. So these are
cool.
some of the elements.
Yeah, so we don't need any configuration to custom switches in order for this system to work. It's literally drop on a laptop and away you go.
That's correct. That's correct. Literally, you install the software, you set up a management interface, you put it on laptops across various sites you want to test, and you just enter the IP address, sync it all together, and boom, you're good to go.
Yeah. How is it licensed anyway? Obviously, for a customer who may have hundreds of sites,
Sure.
is it a license per site or is it just one cost for your solution?
So basically, it's based on number of sites that you're looking to test. So that's what
Okay.
the cost model is based on, and because of the our engagement model, it's actually through the partners itself. But
Yeah,
in essence, it's basically site-based, how many
okay,
sites you're looking to test.
no problem. And is that a lifetime license so they can retest as much as they want?
Yeah, yeah. So you can
Yeah,
you can basically look at flexible models there from that perspective. Um, the key thing is, obviously before you deploy Sky for Business in the environment, you put in assessment and you put these as ongoing testing. But once you
yeah,
have Sky for Business in your environment, you also want to do proper monitoring as well. And that's where
yeah,
the full-blown prognosis comes in. So assessment is great, but you also want to look at things like voice quality for real calls and event logs and all that stuff. So I guess they work quite hand in hand from that perspective. So
yeah.
this is site-based and prognosis is user-based, basically.
Okay. I mean, some of the customers that I've worked in the past,
Yeah,
some of the large ones, um, they tend to not have too much detailed information on their current network. It
yeah,
seems to get so big and so vast that they just lose track of the smaller sites
yes.
usually. So can we use IR to do like a network to map out a network topology as well, and maybe export that to Visio or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any Visio tools for that, but I guess what we could do is one option for partner also is if they want some help in deploying this assessment, they can basically engage IR, services to work
Hmm.
with them to, basically set this up, right? And
Yeah,
that may include where we set up Path Insight and, we're looking at all the network and let's say you go with advanced where you can look at the deep root cause analysis of the routers.
yeah,
We can basically discover the routers in essentials and then add them in, uh, you know, get the customers to create some read-only credentials for us on those specific routers. So there's definitely ways around it to do that. But, partners can work with us for deploying this as well if
yeah.
needed.
So one of the USPs of UC Assessor on top of the basic assessment is that you can see whether DSCP has been stripped on your network. And I noticed in the diagram, in the demonstration where you showed that it was point to point. So are we able to dive into that report to see exactly at which hop DSCP has been stripped?
Yeah, sure. That's actually a pretty good question. So in terms of the essentials part of UC Assessor, it does identify if the DSCP, if there's a DSCP loss or it's being stripped. Um, but to actually get the root cause of it and get the exact hop, you would really need the advanced UC assessor. And what that provides is that provides a call simulator tool. And what you can do is you can actually use that to test specific IP addresses or the link that you see in your environment, and then it'll pinpoint the exact router that the DSCP is being stripped.
Yeah, so you mentioned the call simulator where you can effectively place a test call
Yes.
um, between, and then also in your demonstration you showed that you were able to test links using different codecs. What's the difference between performing a test using the control panel as opposed to doing a call simulation?
Well, the thing is, in terms of the call simulator, well, let me cover the first bit first. So in terms of this visualization that you see here, it's mainly designed for ease of use, right? So basically, let's say you're testing against Skype for Business Online, it automatically detects the nearest Skype for Business online edge, right? And
Yeah,
then you select it from a drop-down box, and basically you can begin doing app share video and audio tests straight away, right?
yeah,
But you might have other tests you want to do as well, right? Apart from Skype for Business Online tests, you probably want to do, a test between your Skype environment and a legacy Cisco or Avaya environment that you have,
yeah,
right? And the call simulator gives you the flexibility where you can enter specific IP addresses and directly from the tool, it tests between it, the same level of things like, synthetic calls
yeah,
and cause markings, etc. So it gives you that flexibility. But if you're just looking for on-prem or site-to-site or to Sky for Business Online Edge, the
yeah.
Essentials covers you basically.
Yeah, cool. So, although Skype Operations Framework is positioning IR for it as a network assessment tool for Skype for Business Online, we could quite conceivably use this for Skype for Business on premises as well, deployments.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, cool. In terms of the, I don't know what you call them, the agents or the servers that are sitting in each site to
Yep.
to drop your agent on, what sort of specifications do customers need to
Not heavy
provide?
at all, to be honest. It could be a low spec laptop, really. So
Yeah,
we're not very particular about what specs you need on there, just any standard laptop. You deploy our software on there, and basically it needs to be able to connect to the server where basically you have the web UI
hmm
in there. So we're not very particular. It's not going to be very beefy specs or anything like that. It's
yeah,
very low
okay,
key. Yeah.
cool.
Hi everyone, Richard Brennison here. So we're going to talk a little bit about Skype Validator, what it does, how you can use it, and talk specifically about the new Polycom VVX configuration. So if you've never seen Skype Validator before, we'll run through a couple of small things just so you can kind of see it, and then we'll jump into the Polycom stuff. So the idea behind the Validator was to create a tool to help organizations deploy Skype for Business on-prem. And since then, it's kind of morphed bigger and bigger, and it really covers three different things: the initial deployment, the monitoring of your environment, and then now phone provisioning as well. So if I click on a deployment that I already have here, this is a lab, so we can see information like what's your primary SIP domain, do I have additional SIP domains, add them to my environment, and the things that you would go through as part of your normal design and deployment of Skype for Business. So if I go to front ends, we can see here we've got different pool types, standard, enterprise, where's our login, all that good stuff. And when everything's said and done, we've gone through all these different steps, we get this nice validate design and make sure that we have the right things. You didn't build an environment with only 2 front-end servers, for example, an enterprise pool. That'd be bad. So we'd warn you about that kind of stuff and kind of go through these different ideas like that. Once that's done, then we give you all the different type of records you need: internal DNS, external, what kind of certificates you need to build, all of your firewall rules for both the inside and the outside of your environment, and things like, host files that have to be on your edge and reverse proxy, and even deployment scripts like, QoS settings, building your Office Web Apps farm, and even internal DNS. So if you're doing like pinpoint DNS, those kind of things. So at the beginning, this is where Michael and we kind of started this as a tool to just create the design. It morphed into monitoring as well, because we figured if you had a deployment, you might want to see if that deployment was good. So what we did is we added the ability to monitor different endpoints, because once you've done the design, we know what your meet URL is going to be in your Office Web Apps server. So here we can see, we're going to do hourly checks to make sure DNS is resolving correctly and return back that information. SRV records, and there's different things in here like port checks, make sure your Office Web App server is working, that kind of stuff as well. And you could even add your own, so you wouldn't be limited to just Skype for Business. We could say I want to make sure that a web content is working, and we can go check out Microsoft.com, and I'm pretty sure somewhere on their website it's going to say the word Microsoft. And we could check the status, and yep, it's actually true, so let's go ahead and add that. And now we're going to continue to monitor web content at the Microsoft.com website, so I would know if they ever went down for some reason. Once you set that all up, then you can do your monitoring, and this is that continuous monitoring. So if an alarm happens, we'd email you, and this is one of the things we're going to make a little bit better in the future. It doesn't do things like second knock and a few other items that traditional monitoring software does. And then if there were events, they would show up under that monitoring events. So at a really high level, that's where the Skype validator started. It was the initial design and then the monitoring. Recently, we added phone provisioning because we found a lot of people have struggles with getting their VVX phones to work. So initially, we kind of did this around an old HTTPS process in Azure, but we found that people wanted to be able to upload information. So then we went ahead and we created an actual FTPS server in Azure to handle it. So I could, theoretically start at this high level. So we have locations. A location, I usually tell people, is, it could be a physical location, or think about it where you might have a DHCP server, and it's handing out a different DHCP scope for that location. So you might have a main office, you might have a London office, you could have a whole bunch of different locations. So I can add that new location, and it tells me, have we provisioned, created those files yet or not. So we can jump into the London office real quick. And by default, we're going to do a lot of settings that you would need for Skype for Business to work, right, on your VVX phones. So, for example, we make sure link profile is set by default. And we can change different things. So on the first page, we have a lot of what I consider just very general kind of items, right? Do we allow line appearance? What do we do with B2E settings? And you'll notice that there's a lot of new 5.5.1 specific settings for VVX, which just came out, I think it was about a week ago now. So we added all those new features. In addition to that, we have how to control your time. So, 12-hour, 24-hour clock, time zone, those kind of things. Different type of calling features. And each one of these tabs kind of gives you those settings that would, either you would have to know what that XML code was for it, or, kind of just dig through the manual for that information. Things that I think are, super helpful, we can set like predefine out all the power settings on it, or, control the home page, which is pretty popular, just kind of, manage and maintain that, because a lot of organizations don't like that. So I'm going to jump back, and I'm going to go to this main office because I've already kind of set this up, so we can see what we have set up. And this is what I'm using actually for the phones I have here at my house, of all things. So I'll make sure to change this password later. But so what you can see up at the top is, this is my username for my FTP server. This is the password that was dynamically generated under the hood. So I don't know this password. It's encrypted in the database, so the system just kind of builds a GUID and gives it to you. And the most important thing is here's my DHCP string. So if I were to set this FTPS location up with my DHCP server, any VVX phone that connected then to my network would pull down these settings specifically and apply these different, whatever I've set. So, in my case, a link profile with BTOE disabled and the different type of settings that we have here. So, again, top level, we have that high level, location. And if I wanted to make a change, maybe I want to enable B2E, I could come down here, hit enable, and then click the generate VVX config button. And there we go. We have a new set of config files that have already been pushed to the server, and the phones, whatever their refresh rate, and again, I could set that here potentially, whatever that refresh rate is, it's going to grab those provisioning files and go ahead and apply them to all my phones. So in my case, B2E should turn on tomorrow between 1 and 6. So that's the high level at the location level. In addition to that, you can download the config, so maybe you don't want to use our FTPS server. That's fine too. Maybe you have your own provisioning server, so you could click on, download that custom config file, and we could go ahead and open that up. And I do not want to update you right now. And I can see, here's that, what that config file would look like, very traditional Polycom XML file here. So that's locations. Beyond that, though, we might want to create groups. So we might have subgroups of devices, right? Maybe HR has a specific need or something else like that. So we can create specific groups. So I've got a couple of fake groups here, Group A and Group B. And when I click into the group, it'll look very similar, right? Here's all the different type of settings that we had. What we do is we automatically take whatever you had at the top level as the location, and then we apply it to the group below. So it kind of becomes your starting point. So that high level starts, then I could edit here. So you'll notice, I could come in and say, for HR, they have very specific requirements to not have much on the home screen for some reason. Or maybe these are going to be more kiosk-like phones, and the only button they should have is a new call button, right? So I could, specify that, or set everything else, leave them checked and say, hey, we're going to leave them as false off to the side. The key thing to know is anytime a setting is checked, that means we're going to apply that and write it into the config. If it's not checked, we'll just use whatever the Polycom defaults are. So if I do that, now the only thing that would appear for this group is just the new call button on the home page. In terms of, and then I could do that for every group or every setting that's inside of it. Once we have our groups, then we can look at specific devices too. So these are some devices that I have that I've created. A couple of them are just kind of fake, so I could pre-enter in a list of MAC addresses, or I could have the phone just register. So these top two here are just actual phones at my house that have registered and automatically appeared. So if I click on this one here, we could see this is a VVX 410. It's running a specific firmware version. We last updated or last got the config at this time. So I could, go so far as click on, to view the app log file, and I can see the entire, log file here then for this device. So if I was looking for troubleshooting or anything else like that, I now have that information at my fingertips. And I could, download it if I want to, search with Notepad++ or some other tool for that information. And I can get the same thing for, boot logs, that kind of stuff as well. In addition, I could, easily assign this device to one of those other groups. So if there's no assigned group, we use that larger location idea. So in this case, we'd be using the main location, but I could say, hey, I want to use that group A where I'm only going to have the home screen. And the moment I click that drop down and I change the group, in the background, config files were specifically created for this device. So if I go back to groups now, we would see that my number of devices, if you'd noticed before, was 2. Now it's 3. So all those config files get generated as soon as I do group management or assignment. I could also, from the group itself, modify my group membership, and what it'll do is it'll show me all the devices I have in my environment, and I can choose, which group they're assigned to. And if I want to remove this phone from that group, I could, just clear it and say don't assign to group A anymore, and save the group membership, and it would go ahead and pull all that out. So at a high level, that's kind of where we're thinking about going, or where we're going with the phone provisioning. The actual config, once you've created that initial location, all of this information here will just kind of get automatically generated for you. Right now, it takes about 24 hours for the server to kind of process and do some of that stuff. We're going to try to work to bring that to a smaller amount of time, so people don't have to wait as much. The other thing, we've tested it. I've had I had a customer with about 500 phones, and it seemed to work. We don't really have an idea of where we're going to stop. I'm sure there's some sort of higher upper limit that we probably, wouldn't want to support, or, an organization would probably want to use an on-premise server for it. But, we're thinking that this is probably a pretty good tool for organizations that are, that small to mid-size organization to be able to, generate their VBX configs and, be able to manage phones from kind of a central location.
Cool. Rich, on the update tab, how do you update the phones? Do you store the firmware on your site, or do we point to an on-premises server for that?
Yeah, so today what we're doing is we're just using the Skype for Business cab files today. One of the things we're looking at is, is there a way to allow you to upload config file, or to upload the cab files, or I guess firmware files, or can we do that and kind of just allow you to pick which version of phone firmware you want to apply? There's some, when you download Polycom software, there's a license agreement you have to agree to and stuff like that. So we would have to kind of follow through those same process. So it's something we're looking at. Today it's just Skype for Business cab files. The plan is in the future to let you either use that or upload files, or let you kind of control it yourself. Yeah. Obviously, certificate management is key, so we do allow us for cert management as well. We have a lot of people, they find that's one of the biggest struggles, right? How do I get my internal cert deployed everywhere? So we kind of introduced that not too long ago. And the other big ask we got that's coming is Kodak management. I never really thought of it, but there's a lot of extra Kodaks that are turned on by default that does some kind of screwy things sometimes with the VVX phone. So just being able to go in and essentially manage, there's only really 3 or 4 that Skype for Business is ever going to use, so we probably don't need to turn on, the 20 or whatever it is by default that's there.
So in terms of the Skype Validator package as a whole, so obviously the Polycom provisioning element is quite an intriguing addition. Mm-hmm. Now, forgive me if I get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure we can do code mission control policies in Skype Validator. I mean, it's been a while since I've used it myself, to be perfectly honest. But are you planning to develop some kind of asset management for the Polycom phones as well, so that we can see what we can export a list of where the phones are, who they're assigned to, etc.
Yeah, so it'll come here at the device level. So today it's pretty basic info. What devices have checked in. And it's kind of what happens under the hood is, here you're seeing devices I've created or have already connected to my network. If I were to grab a new phone out of the box and plug it into my network and pull down that FTP, provisioning stuff, it would just appear in this list immediately, right? So I can use it for some asset management. What I don't have in here today is, who's logged in, what the IP is of the phone, but we'll we're going to grab that information. Because the nice thing is all of that info is actually sitting in the log file of who's logged in, what the local is. So we're going to just parse that for people so that they can have an exportable asset list, right?
Cool.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of a first, step at trying to help people rein in a little bit of what they have out on the network for people.
Cool. And is the likes of Ken Lasko and Alex Lewis still speaking to you after you've built this?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's two very different worlds, right? I don't think there's anyone who's going to look at this and go, man, I'm going to put 20,000 seats of VVX phones here. They're more than welcome to try it.
Somebody's asked you that though, haven't they?
We had a couple of customers come to us and we kind of shook them off, and we're kind of like, this isn't, this is very much a community project for small companies, right? I mean, the thing that we hear, and we've heard it from Polycom as well, right, is people struggle with a VVX phone. They don't know what to do even at the base level.
Yeah.
Time management and these kind of things. So, just to be able to create and generate a starting, XML file for customers is huge. If you want to take that XML file and go import it into Event Zero later on, go for it, right? I mean, there's a lot of, there's other tools out there, obviously, but we just wanted to give people kind of a starting point so that they're aware of, what they could do inside the device.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is really good. I mean, for free as well, right? So you're not charging for this edition.
Yeah, at this point in time, we're not. So anyone who's used the validator before, they know that everything's been free. The only thing that we've ever asked for a donation for is if you had a lot of deployments, if you wanted to do that automated monitoring for multiple deployments. There's been a very huge $10 donation. That's pretty much just helped try to cover the cost of the Azure instances that are running on the back end. So yeah, we haven't really, this is kind of all still, in beta is what we're calling it. So we don't know if it makes sense to tell people, first 100, 500, 1,000 phones. After that, maybe we might have to start putting the brakes on a little bit. We'll probably figure that out after someone tries to put too much there at the first place. And then
I'm guessing your Azure instance all hosted in America at the moment, right? So
this is 100% in Azure. So and most of it, well, not most of it, there are actually no physical servers running in Azure. This is Azure web apps and Azure applications and stuff like that are either front ending the FTP stuff or the website. So, trying to keep it pretty modern-ish as much as possible.
Yeah, cool. In terms of the monitoring element, it's just the public endpoints that you can monitor at the moment.
Yep. Yeah. So one of the big asks people have asked us about is there a way to do it on-prem? And it's something we've looked at. I've written a tool that was based on this. It's really rough right now, so it's probably still out there a little bit. But the idea is, long term, we could have a local probe, because the design, you enter in all of your internal IPs too. So we should be able to, do a local probe, gather the information we need, and then do internal checks as well as external. So there's a fine line where I'm not trying to recreate SCUM or anything, right? No. So there's a lot of stuff you can do already internally. So our first go was, how do we check and make sure the firewall admin didn't, knock down a bunch of ports last night during their updates or something like that? It's usually that's where the problem is.
I suppose the biggest question really is, are you planning to do anything with Skype Online? Do you see value in the Skype validator for Skype Online deployments?
I mean, for like VVX provisioning and stuff like that, for sure, right? I mean, from a monitoring perspective, there's probably not much. We have talked about whether or not there's some value of adding in some of the CCE device config, and that's something we are definitely looking at least just from a DNS perspective, because it's it's a little confusing what needs to be deployed internally and what not for CCE. So, and part of it is probably just trying to figure out where the future of that product is going to, because it seems to
Fluctuate.
yeah, a little bit.